Predatory publishing and academic cancer. I will take us through this outline. We look at the history of predatory publishing, the characteristics of both predatory journals and publishers, magnitude of the problem, why do academics publish in predatory journals, what are the efforts at controlling predatory publishing, how to avoid predatory publishing, and what to do when one unknowingly submits an article to a predatory journal, and we'll wrap up with a take-home message. The learning objectives are: 1. To identify predatory publishers and journals and know how to avoid publishing with such publishers and journals, and to know what to do when one inadvertently submits a manuscript to a predatory journal. Jeffrey Bell, an academic librarian and a researcher at the University of Colorado in Denver, was the first to bring to the fore the problems of predatory publishers. He observed sometime in 2008 that he received so many emails, spam mails, soliciting him to submit articles and whatnot. When he went through a good number of these submissions, he observed that they have something in common. Everything about them revolves around profit. So he came up with a list that classifies these journals and publishers into predatory, possibly, or potential predatory journals. Because this is big business, he came under serious attack. He was a target of vicious online comments, intimidations, threats, and even legal suits. But Bell himself acknowledged that at times it may be difficult to differentiate between startup, new journals, or journals in under-resourced countries with predatory publishing. In 2015, Bell came up with some criteria. He has about 26 related to poor journal standards, 9 related to journal editors and staff members, 7 related to ethics and integrity, 6 related to publishers' business practices, and 6 other general criteria related to publishers. He also listed 26 additional practices, which were actually reflective of poor journal standards, which may not necessarily mean that the journal is predatory. The list ceased to exist in January 2017 for so many reasons: the online attacks, the litigation, the threat, the intimidation, and all that. But before then, Bell's list has gone viral, and others have actually worked on the Bell's and updated the Bell's list. Others, like the Cabell's blacklist, also came on board after the closure of the Bell's list. While the Bell's list was or is still free, the Cabell's Predatory Report is a paid subscription service. And in fact, Cabell's describes the Predatory Reports as the only database of deceptive and predatory academic journals. Cabell has about 65 criteria, and the company reviews the list on quarterly basis. And here, unlike Bell's, it includes specific mentions of the reason why a journal is included. But this is too expensive for individual subscription. We cannot talk about predatory publishing without bringing in what is key. What motivates predatory publishing is the article processing charge. Many, but not all, open access journals charge what is called article processing charge for accepted, not for submission, for accepted articles. Because this is what is used to run the journal. In traditional based journalistics, which is based on subscription, individuals and institutions pay to access services. But here it's free of charge. So someone has to pay the bills. And that is where the article processing charge comes in. Again, when we talk about predatory publishing, largely we are talking about open access publishing. Although non-open access could also be predatory. More generally, when we talk about predatory publishing, it's about open access publishing. And what is open access publishing? This refers to the process of making research outputs freely available online without any barriers to access. This removes barriers of reuse, especially through copyright. And unlike the traditional based system, where articles are only made available through subscription, this is free of any costs. Therefore, open access creates greater equity in access to information. Not equality, but greater equity. This is what the traditional based system is. And this is what open access is. In traditional, of course, if you can pay the bills, you get the articles. You cannot pay, you struggle. If you are a developing country, you only pray for gravity to take. It's cost for you to get this fruit. But open access says no. Let us make distribution of knowledge equitable. Here, this person, probably from a developed country, has access to this food. Someone from a middle income country has the same access. And another person from a low income country like us has equal access to this information because it's freely available online. All you need is an internet. The promoters of open access journal had at the back of their mind the public good. And that is the basis for open access publishing. You can look at so many initiatives, from the Budapest Open Access Initiative to the Bethesda Statement on Open Access Publishing to the Berlin Declaration on Open Access to Knowledge. According to the statement in Budapest Open Access Initiative, the public good they open access make possible is the worldwide electronic distribution of peer-reviewed journal literature and completely free and unrestricted access to it by all scientists, scholars, teachers, students, and other curious minds. The statement went further to predict that removing access barriers to this literature will accelerate research, enrich education, share the learning of the rich with the poor and the poor with the rich, make this literature as useful as it can be, and lay the foundation for uniting humanity in a common intellectual conversation and quest for knowledge. These were the first journals that came up with open access. Burmese Central and Public Library of Science, where millions of readers have access immediately after publishing. Then came the bad guys who want to cash on the article processing charges used by genuine open access journals purely for the purpose of making profit and not advancing knowledge. These publishers and journals are what are called predatory publishers and predatory journals. It was reported that among the 2 Nigerian publishers found in base lists, within 5 years, they established 28 active journals. And the authors concluded that they made approximately over $3 million in 5 years. What type of business will bring this within 5 years? Another study also showed that Nigeria had one of the largest number of contributors to the list of predatory journals the authors assessed. Another author concluded that the long-term consequences of this is that the global scientific community may receive even genuine research conducted in Nigeria with serious suspicion. And look at what Jeffrey Bell himself said about Nigeria when he was interviewed. He said, look, when I discover a new population from Nigeria, I admit I am more suspicious than I would be where the population from, for example, the Vatican. But he added that I try to be as fair and honest as I can be when I am making judgments. But again, you have been already profiled. Now, let's look at briefly what is open access, because what is key regarding predatory population is about open access. So what is this open access, which we have looked at? And so, but what are the key ingredients that attract predatory publishers to open access? Is the article processing charge, because their main priority is about profit, not about advancing knowledge. So, now, this is diamond open access. You don't pay anything. There is no article processing charge in diamond, but of course there are very few diamond open access journals. You have the green open access, you have the bronze open access. You don't pay anything for this. So predatory publishers and journals don't go for this. Why? Because there is no article processing charge. So there is no business. Where do they go to? They go for gold open access, which is the most popular and charges huge amounts for publications. This is BMJ Open, where we published a paper last year. And look at the article processing charge. Of course, it was waived because we made a case. But at that point, it amounted to 844,000 naira. Why will a researcher in a developing country get this to publish just a paper? This is where predatory journals cash in and make a lot of money. Of course, we also have a hybrid where it's subscription based and also open access. They also charge article processing charge. So these two, the gold and the hybrid, is where the predatory journals actually cash in to make good cash. When plastics were discovered, the world celebrated. And today, anywhere you go, in our homes, in our offices, place of work, everywhere you see plastics in one form or the other. But the world never envisaged this. At the time plastics were discovered, we all celebrated. It's not different from open access publishing. At the time we started the concept of open access publishing, we didn't envisage that some publishers and journals will catch it on this and spoil the public good that the open access movement is not for. And for years, there was no consensus on how to define this type of unethical publishing practices. Then leading scholars and publishers from 10 countries agreed on a definition of predatory publishing to protect scholarship. It took 12 hours of discussion, 18 questions, and 3 rounds to reach that. Now, look at this illustration by David Perkins. So, this is a journal, but what is at the back of this animal? It's concealed. That is what predatory journal is about. And so, a consensus was developed on the definition of predatory journal. and publishers. And the definition is predatory journals and publishers are entities that prioritize self-interest at the expense of scholarship and are characterized by false or misleading information, deviation from best editorial and publishing practices, a lack of transparency, and or the use of aggressive and indiscriminate solicitation practices. So now, this is the consensus definition of predatory journals and publishers. There are different types of predatory publishing. We can have the predatory publishers, we can have standalone journals, and we can have what is called hijack or clone journals. Over 6 years, look at the growth of predatory publishing. 2011, only 18. By 2016, 926. Why? Big business. Standalone journals between 2013 and 2016, from 126 in 2013 to 888 over a period of 4 years. Within 1 year, you have from 30 to 101 hijack journals. Now, one of this is a real picture, and the other one is an artistic work. That is what hijack or clone journal is all about. They hijack the journal and appear real. If you are not careful, you fall like this one. So which one is the real image and which one is the artistic work? That is what hijack journals do. The concept of peer review is part of editorial process, but it's not captured in the definition of predatory publishing, not because it's not important, but because it's difficult to judge poor peer review or what others call peer review failures. Because a good number of peer reviewers fail to detect key issues in preprints. Before I did a course on peer review, I didn't know that there are 3 stages of going through any manuscript. 1 is the broad read, then 2 is the second detailed read, and 3rd is the third detailed read. And at each stage, there are specific things you look at. I didn't know before I enrolled into that course. So if someone is not trained as a peer reviewer, it may be quite challenging to pick certain things, and that will lead to peer review failure. It was published in a paper by Nature about how some researchers use themselves to assess their work. Because some journals will ask you after submitting your manuscript to submit lists of suggested reviewers. So this group of researchers will now send names of fake reviewers and fake emails, and when they send these articles back, it will be the same reviewers that will review this article and send it back. So this is fake peer review. This paper in Nature shows that there is no list to rule them all. Why? Because there's an overlap between the best list and the list in DOAJ. There may also be an overlap between the Cabez verified and the other lists. For instance, some journals deemed legitimate by DOAJ were deemed predatory by the Bells and or the Cabez lists. These are pictures of hotels in Dubai. One of the leading lights in predatory publishing said that instead of bringing out lists of journals that are predatory, why not bring out lists of journals that are not predatory? He said that is what is important, because if someone is going for a vacation or for whatever reason he travels somewhere, he'll be looking for the list of good hotels, not the list of bad hotels. That's his concept. But for us in Africa, or some developed countries, by the time we are traveling out, we don't ask for the best hotels. We ask for the affordable hotels. So it doesn't really follow. It depends on which side of the divide you belong in. So both are important. You have both what is called the predatory journals and the verified, what others call the black and the white list. But of course, so for those of us in Africa, we abhor the use of that term because black, anywhere you mention black means it's bad, white is good. So I think that is a form of stereotyping which we shouldn't promote. Now look at this. All these are depicting predatory population. Here they promise you, a red carpet treat. Look at shark swallowing dollars. Here, West. You're just wasting people's time, wasting people's resources. Here you can see a paper, and it's good for graphs. Here you can see a predator going after a prey. All these are depicting what predatory population is all about. Now a brief on the history. John Bohannon is a staff writer with science. He concocted a paper from nothing and sent the paper for peer review. 60%, including Elsevier journals, Sage, and Metno, accepted this fake and concocted paper. But +1 and Hindawi rejected. In 2017, a group of researchers carried out an experiment. They call it Dr. Fraud experiment. It was about a Polish Ursus who applied for an editor position. Everything about Ursus were false. She had not published any paper. All the book chapters were not true. The publishing houses were not true. Everything was made up. It's just like having a mama put the name on a mama put, and get a CV for the mama put and send it to journals for editorship position. 8 of 120 sample from DOAJ accepted. No sample from the 120 sample journals from Journal Citation Report offers SUS position. Now let's look at it in details. Here again, it was published in Nature. These are predatory journals. 33 accepted the fake editor who had never published anywhere. 7% of journals in the directory of open access accepted it. After this, the DOAJ patch are removed some of the titles. None from journals that have impact factor by Journal Citation Report accepted this fake editor. So what does that tell you? When you want to publish, better publish in journals that are indexed with Thomson Reuters, not with the fake indexing bodies. Like, again, about the history. In 2016, Stefan Eriksson and Gert Helgeson identified 25 signs of predatory publishing. But they are quick to add that if a predatory journal meets one criteria, it may not necessarily be predatory. But the more points or the more criteria the journal meets, the more likely that the journal is predatory. Now let's look at the 25 characteristics of predatory journals by Eriksson and Helgeson. If the journal is not a member of any organized organization like Committee on Publication Ethics, if the journal is not indexed in well-established industry bodies like Medline, Web of Science, DOAJ, if the publisher claims that it's a leading publisher, while in actual sense it just got started, if the journal is not familiar to you and your colleagues, if the papers are poor quality, if there are fundamental errors, in the preprint, if the website is not professional, if there is no sufficient information about the editorial board on the website, and if the location of the editorial office is fuzzy or incorrect, if the publishing schedule is not very clear, If the journal is, for instance, in Maiduguri and says the name is international or global, or a journal is in India and it's an American journal, be wary. If the journal mimics another journal title, like say Lancet, you have another Lancet or Nature, be careful. If it is a new journal but has an impact factor, you have to spend at least a year before you are indexed. Impact factor is assessed over 2 years. So if you have a journal that is just volume 1 and say this is its impact factor, that means there's a problem. For instance, in Index Copernicus and Scientific Journal, impact factor are considered predatory impact factors. If the journal claims a very high impact factor higher than the impact factor for the notation of the journal, or if the journal posts non-related or non-academic advertisements, be careful about that. If the publisher releases large amounts of journals at a go or within a very short period, be careful. If the editor-in-chief of the journal is also the editor-in-chief of other journals, for instance, I'm editor-in-chief of CANEM, I'm also editor-in-chief of an agricultural journal, be very careful. If the journal scope is very wide, you publish anything that comes to you, you publish. If the journal keeps on sending also it's an invitation for you to submit your manuscripts, be careful. If the email is not professional, written in poor language or flattery, be careful. If there is no clear information regarding the article processing charge, be careful. If the amount is not clearly spelled out, we need to be careful. If the journal makes unrealistic promises, we are going to publish in a week, in 2 weeks, we know the process of peer review. We know how it takes, how to get them. These peer reviewers are not paid most times. So it's difficult to assume that you receive a manuscript and publish within 24, 48 hours. If the journal does not describe its copyright, a journal that is open access means the copyright is free. The copyright is not claimed by the journal. So if you see these contradictions, that means there's a problem somewhere. The journal does not have any strategy to handle misconduct, conflict of interest, or how to archive the articles when the journal is no longer in operation. So these are the 25 criteria described by Erickson and Helgason, which form some of the characteristics of predatory journals. Again, look at this. They claim contact locations from predatory affect journal websites, but these are the actual contact locations on WHOIS. Look at this 488 from journal contact location sets from India, but the actual is 456. While 69 were said to be from United States. In actual fact, it's 93. You can look at this. Here again, looking at the comparison of journal website contact location claims and actual location based on IP and WHOIS. Journal website contact location claim, India 42. Journal IP WHOIS contact location, none, is in India. Here you can see 27 in USA, but look at these two journals are actually in Nigeria, not in US. So wrong contact information. So let's look at the characteristics of researchers who publish in these journals. They're usually young, inexperienced, and mostly from universities in developing countries. Look at what it says, like Turkey, Botswana, Jordan, Malaysia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and especially Nigeria. I just quoted this verbatim. Again, about the history. Let me take you through some of my personal experiences with predatory publishing, which will buttress what we've said earlier. Now, okay, let me cover this. So, I was the corresponding author, 2009. So, when I submitted this article 2009, I was a young researcher. I was inexperienced, and I was especially in Nigeria. So I submitted this, and they accepted it without corrections. I was a real researcher. How can this be? Later, they asked us to pay. I think it was then about 500,000 naira or so. When we look at it, I said, really? I told my boss, I said, this is it. We can't afford that. So I wrote to the editor-in-chief, we cannot afford this. The editor-in-chief refused to retract, and he went ahead and published the paper. So when I look back and I saw this is volume 1, number 2. So this is a new journal. Just a year after Jeffrey Bell started noticing challenges with open access publishing. Here again, you can see this email I received from Imran Hussein. This looks like an Asian name, and India is known for predatory publishing. He says, publicize your manuscript. You can see regards IAR Consortium. Again, the next mail I got was from IAR Consortium regarding the same issue. So different people sending you different messages on the same issue. When you see this type of logo in a journal that is requesting you to submit manuscript, be careful. Why? Because if you look at this here, it didn't say anything about site score by Scopus. It did not say anything about journal citation report. It's talking about Crossref, DOI, research. These are social sites. These are just identifiers. They don't add value to the journal. Here is one that we contributed a chapter in a book. And look at the email and the language. I hope this email finds you well. I'm contacting you on behalf of the book editor, the blah, blah, blah. So well organized, covers most of aspects of blah, blah. The ITT Gate report shows 11 similarity index. Please refresh and reference the highlighted text. So this looks to some extent genuine. What about this? Thank you for your email. Please ignore the last email's attachment and consider the present attachment. That is a red flag already. As informed you earlier, a research paper, so the language, so it's suspicious. Then the follow-up email, thank you for completing the payment process. Here is the catch about payment. So initially, when my mentee met me about this, I told her that, well, no problem, I think we can pay. When she came back and said they should pay additional or something, that was when I knew this predatory would have been caught, even at this level. So, but the first one, we paid, but that was genuine. So at times, it takes some experience to be able to spot predatory from predatory journals. Here, look at again this name, Rahul Sharma, but from Himalayan Journal of Agriculture. What have I got to do with agriculture? Again, look at it here. Editor-in-Chief, Dr. Nwagu Christian Chukwenje. This is Nigeria. So, these are some of the examples of predatory population. Here, I got an email from Taylor and Francis Group, an informal business. We know this is a highly repeatable, well-established publishing house. They will not send to me in faraway Nigeria and reminding me that the deadline is approaching for editor-in-chief role with the journal's Women Reproductive Health. So, but if you look at this website, everything about it looks good. But we'll compare with this Taylor and Francis Commercial Business Group, right? Taylor and Francis Group and informal business. Taylor and Francis Group and informal business. This looks too genuine to ignore. But again, I went to the website. This is the website of this Women's Reproductive Health Journal. Look at this website. The original one is professional. And look at the editorial board. Editor from Australia, Emeritus Editor, USA, Associate Editor, Australia. And look at the consulting editors. All except this. This is the only one from Africa, and it's in South Africa. All from US, Australia, US, Australia. So, why would I expect that this is genuine? This is what? This is a hijack journal. And then when I went further, that it started publishing in 2014. So if they're looking for editor-in-chief, they can pull from the pool of editors they have from US and Australia, not from Maiduguri. What is the magnitude of the problem of predatory publishing? What is the magnitude of fake drugs? What is the magnitude of using fake or expired tires? What is the magnitude of using adulterated aviation fuel? What is the magnitude of using substandard wiring cables? The magnitude of this is similar to the magnitude of predatory population. A study showed that in Italy, about 5% of researchers population predatory and fake journals. And another study suggested that most of the money paid out are actually funded by US National Institute of Health. Not only about money, what happens to the time you've wasted, the energy. It is a big business because except Sylvia, for example, has a profit margin of about 40%. This is higher than the profit margin of Microsoft, Coca-Cola, and Google. So when these big time publishers are busy crying about predatory publishing, they also to some extent protect their business because it's big profit that these smart guys, so to speak, want to take over from them. When you publish in predatory journals, you are like promoting criminal gangs, like human trafficking. And what is the impact of publishing in predatory journal on your academic career, on your name and the name of your institution? Just like tomatoes are perishable, papers published in predatory journals are also perishable. Remember that the NUC is working on a document about the minimum criteria to become a professor, talking about H index of 40 and I index of 30. When you publish in predatory journals, the number of citations will be few. So when we look at this H index as it stands today, I've been a professor for many years, but my H index is only 22. So legal consequences are there. When the journal is delisted, you know what it means to the name of the journal and to the name of the authors who publish in that journals. If researchers use the findings from a predatory journal and interpret it as genuine and translate it to patient care, you know what that means. So, why do researchers publish in predatory journals? This article in an Elsevier journal, Journal of Informatics, asks the question: predatory journals, who publishes in them and why? In Turkey, they have these academic incentives. So people publish in predatory journals to get additional cash. In our climes, you either publish or you perish. Others tried to publish in journals with impact factor. They couldn't. So they settle for predatory journals. If there's a competition among colleagues, you want to gain more respect, highest cost, you then publish. After all, it's a published work. Others may not be aware, like I was not aware in 2009. What about the easy access to technology? Very easy to recruit editors, as I was approached by Taylor and Francis, a hijack journal. Very easy, and very easy to pay article processing charges electronically. Now, this looks at countries with highest number of publications in predatory affairs journals with their number of publications. So, see where we are after India. Why? Look at this NUC site. Trends in number of universities, 2015 to 2018. Look at the total number, it's increasing. And what makes a university? The academic community. And for you to progress, you need to publish. And so many will publish in predatory journals. Now, this is looking at the first 30 countries where editors of predatory and fake journals are located. Where are they located? Go some country, United Kingdom. So remember, there was a time a prime minister of the United Kingdom described Nigeria as fantastically corrupt. So here you can see this is also about what? About predatory population. It's also about corruption. So UK is also fantastically corrupt in this respect. Now look at some of the reasons from this paper. Promotion, academic incentives, fear of just loss, unpublished or perished pressure, failure to publish in journals that are indexed, in citation index and others, competition within the institution and desire to score high points. And this was from a webinar titled Addressing Predatory Population. They found out that from their participants, at least 24% of the respondents have either published in a predatory journal or participated in a predatory conference or don't know if they have. Look at this. They were not aware at the time. Look at the comments. The conference looked very legitimate and non-predatory. There was support from the university and several well-known professors were in the invitations. They needed to advance their career. You need to publish in a predatory journal to stay in the race. It was a faster, easier, or cheaper option. I feel guilty, but it is necessary to publish in a predatory journal for my students to complete their study faster due to the limitation of time and scholarship. They were encouraged by their peers. The late author suggested we publish in a predatory journal after a few rejections, and one co-author was an editor at the journal, which made it difficult to criticize. So these were the reasons some of the respondents gave for publishing in predatory journals. So how do we control predatory publishing? In Poland, the National Science Center has a penalty for publishing in non-recognized journals. In South Africa, they already have a list of accredited journals where it's supposed to publish, and when they do that, they get rewards. In India, they also have a list of journals that researchers should publish in by the University Grant Commission. Now here, looking at the predatory papers by country and income. Low income country, here we are again, Nigeria, Egypt. Middle income country, India. But again, in June, India's University Grants Commission released a list of recommended journals to counter predators. High income country, United States. You can see that. So when it comes to this, at least we are competing with India and the United States. At least we are in the forefront in this respect, negatively for that matter. In the College of Medical Sciences, since 2018, we've applied the best list for appraisal exercises. What is the advantage? What are the advantages? We are protected as scholars from the exploits of publishing gangsters. We have also created awareness on predatory publishing. And most importantly, we have avoided wastes of effort, time, and energy. As individuals, we can control publishing in predatory journals if we know that these are the consequences. Departments can do the same, faculty can do the same. That's what we are doing as a college. Academic librarians have an important role to play by helping the university community know journals that are acceptable and the ones that are not acceptable. Institutions can come up with lists of accredited journals. And you see that the accredited body, and you can decide to come up with a minimum benchmark. The Ministry of Education can do the same. And why not bring in anti-corruption agencies to this matter? What of TEDFund, who is a fund of research? They need to say a word or two about publishing in predatory journals. And most importantly, if there's a legislation, anybody who publishes in predatory journals, in these journals, will have some consequences to face. And of course, all stakeholders need to be involved. One of the most important ways of controlling predatory publishing is to emphasize more on quality than on quantity. As someone said, one article that would impact society in nature is enough to appoint you as a professor. That should be the way to go, not the number of papers. How to avoid predatory publishing? You can use Sharper Romeo, which show the copyright and open access safe academic policies of academic journals. You can use OASPA principles of transparency and best practices in scholarly publishing. And you can use Google Maps. If you use Google Map to locate the site or the location of the publisher, and you see something like this as the location, then you know what to do. whether to go ahead and submit your articles here or not to. So, again, buyer beware. There are so many ways to avoid predatory publishing. A checklist, which we have looked at when we look at the characteristics. But I think the most important here is the last one. So use common sense as you would when shopping online. If something looks fishy, proceed with caution. I think this summarizes all this. Again, you can use this think, check, and submit. Think, is a journal trustworthy? Do you need more information? Ask a colleague. Like who wants to be a millionaire? Call a friend. 50-50. Ask the audience. So check. Is it indexed? What is the scope? Who is the publisher? Is there a contact address? What is their policy? What is the peer review policy? Any APCs? What of the editorial board members? If you are satisfied with this, then you can submit. If you are not, please don't. You can also use journal finders. Many publishers have what? Journal finder tools. Sylvia Journal Finder, Spin Journal Finder, Willy Journal Finder, so many journal finders. You can also use top abstract indexing agencies, DOAJ, Web of Science, Scopus, COP, Thomson Reuters, and many others. This will guide you on how to avoid predatory publishing. So what do you do when you inadvertently submit your paper to predatory journal? Do not pay the publication fee. Do not sign the copyright agreement. Write to the journal to withdraw or to retract your submission if it's already accepted. Resist the journal's request for any withdrawal or retracting fee. And in future, you are burned once. A child that is burned once will avoid the fire. So publish responsibly in the future. You can submit this same paper to another journal, but inform the journal about your encounter with this predatory publishing. Now, this game we're looking at, is it a safe game? Or these games, are they safe really? Putting your head into the mouth of a crocodile, a live crocodile, walking on a tightrope. This. Now look at this, the king, standing on his crown and putting his head into a lion, into the mouth of a lion. So what it means is that in the next few days, a new king will be crowned. So, are you willing to do any of this? If yes, well, but I believe the answer is no. So if no, then avoid publishing in predatory journals. Now, what is this? So this is a trick. It's not real. And this reminds me of James Hadliches. Not only his name, but the title of this novel, which I read many years ago when I was in secondary school. Believe this, you will believe anything. So our take-home message is that let's put up our thinking cap. Let's use a magnifying glass or a microscope to spot the difference between genuine and predatory journals. We should be mindful of the fact that as we change the rules, the predatory journals also adapt and change and blend. So we need to be very careful as we do that. Let us emphasize quality over quantity. And most importantly, we need to join hands to fight predatory publishing, which I consider as an academic cancer. Thank you very much for listening.